Go, go, go.
What?
G-O.
Yes.
Go, go.
Go, go, go. We are going because we are live. How's it going, everybody? Joan on the live stream chat. Beautiful day. What am I doing inside? I don't know, Joan, but if you go outside, you better take us with you, all right? That's all we're saying. Your Ben Joravsky show for Tuesday, June 15th is just moments away. But before we do this, we need to thank our sponsors. Sponsors like SEIU Healthcare, Illinois, Indiana.
Welcome back, beaches!
Oh, good. The Chicago Federation of Labor, our sponsors, as well as the Chicago Reader. ChicagoReader.com for all things there is to know the city of Chicago. Where to go, what to do, what to eat, what to drink, what kind of pot to smoke. It's true. They talk about that as well, including political columns and so much more from our very own Ben Joravsky and the guest we're about to have join us in moments, Maya Dukmasova. Chicago Reader, ChicagoReader.com. And if you want to help out this humble, weird little program, well, you can. ChicagoReader.com/Joravsky, Jorav as in victory, SKY. There, you can be a bin head. That's what we call people who like this show, bin heads. Are you a bin head? Well, we'll find out soon enough, I guess. ChicagoReader.com/Joravsky. You can join the Avenue, the Alley, or the Boulevard. Go check it out and help out the program. And the Ben Joravsky Show starts now. It is Tuesday, June 15th. Yes, Ben, that is a notebook. And live from my apartment and his attic, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. Today on the program, our Chicago Reader colleague, Maya Dukmasova, and 35th Ward Alderman, Carlos Ramirez Rosa. And now your host, owner of a red notebook, Chicago Reader columnist Ben Joravsky.
Hello, everybody. Ben Joravsky here. We're calling this Lori Lightfoot's Shining Moment Tuesday, and here's why. Great weekend. You have a good weekend, D?
Yes, I did.
I went for bike rides and stuff like that?
Yeah. I rode to like Andersonville and then rode to, just like to Jackson Park.
All right, that's good. I like when you get out there and get your exercise and get that fresh air.
I see what you did with the title there, by the way. That was good. Shining Moment.
We'll get to that. Anyway, I did just the opposite. I stayed indoors and watched a lot of basketball. Utterly obsessed with basketball. The last night I did go to a White Sox game. I want to give a shout out to my oldest friend in the universe. Not literally the oldest as in age-wise, but the friend I've known the longest, young Joshua Michael. Thank you very much. What a blast it was going to that White Sox game. It reminded me of the days back in high school, and you and I were just hanging out, being stupid. Anyway, I love you, my brother. So what else? What else is on my mind? Well, I'll tell you what's on my mind. I'm going to discuss Mayor Lori Lightfoot's email to her staffers, which I know about thanks to a couple of millennials. One, Gregory Pratt, a Chicago Tribune reporter who unearthed it as part of a FOIA request and then tweeted it. And the other, today's guest, Alderman Carlos Ramirez Rosa, who knows that the best way to keep me in the dark about anything is to disseminate that something that you want to keep me in the dark about on Twitter. So he texted me the tweet. Maya Dukmasova also knows that. And from time to time, she sends me a text of a tweet just to keep me informed. Where would I be without the millennials in my life? All right, let's get back to this email from Lori Lightfoot. Ladies and gentlemen, this email is a piece of work. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Ben, your mind is supposed to be on important issues. You're supposed to be analyzing the mayor's municipal bonding strategies. You're supposed to be talking about really deep and important and complicated issues, not diving into the mud with such trivialities. Oh, come on, folks. This stuff is too surreal to pass up. For those who missed it, in January of this year, Mary Lori Lightfoot lost her mind over staffers who were missing a 48-hour deadline she imposed for sending her informational memos that she needs to help her make her decisions. She needs these memos because if they come in late, she will not have all the information she needs to make the important decisions. So she was really mad at them for not turning in these memos in time. So she sent out this really angry email to all these staffers, which I will now do a dramatic reading of right now. Here we go. This is a dramatic reading. Since my prior requests for office times are routinely ignored, I am now resorting to this. I need office time every day. 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 I'm sorry, folks. You have to read the whole thing to realize what a lunatic the mayor was.
Yeah.
I need office time every day. 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 Not just once a week or some days, every day. Not just once. I can't do it, folks.
Yeah, your computer is not lagging, people.
I can't do it. I cannot read it because I'm going to start to doubt my own sanity. Anyway, when I read that, my first thought is this is the most batshit crazy eruption from City Hall since Mayor Daley told Mick Dumke he was going to stick a musket up his ass, which was the most batshit crazy eruption out of City Hall since Mayor Byrne kicked a Tribune reporter out of the press room, which was the most batshit crazy eruption out of City Hall since Mayor Rahm told a staffer to take the tampon out and man it up, which actually didn't occur in City Hall, but I thought I'd mention it anyway, just in case Rahm felt left out. My other thought is Mayor Lightfoot was conjuring Jack Nicholson's character in The Shining, a great Stanley Kubrick movie based on a great Stephen King novel about this writer who takes his family up to the hotel in the mountains of Colorado, and he's going to write the great American novel, only has a wiki case of writer's block, and he just keeps writing the same sentence over and over again. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. And then he goes after his wife and son with an axe. Great flick, by the way. Then I thought, wait a minute, Lori Lightfoot's young, or at least younger than me. She might not have known about The Shining, the movie or the book. So I looked it up, and the movie came out in 1979 when Mayor Lightfoot was Lori, happy-go-lucky point guard on her high school basketball team. So yes, she knows the movie. And then I thought, how did she write it? Breaks or transition time between meetings are not office time. That's a sentence that she repeats over and over again. Did she write that sentence over and over like Jack Nicholson's character did in The Shining? Or should you just write it once and then copy and paste, which in my opinion is cheating. Jack Nicholson didn't copy and paste. You know, I think this requires more digging. Gregory Pratt, please, FOIA this, something. Anyway, it also occurred to me that maybe she was channeling Pink Floyd. There's that song, The Wall, where the singer goes, how can you have your pudding if you don't eat your meat? How can you eat your meat if you don't have your pudding? I always get that reversed. How can you have your pudding if you don't eat your meat? That song also came out in the late 70s. They probably played it at Lori's prom. Can you imagine dancing to The Wall at a prom? Anyway, this just in from Frank. A Marjorie Taylor Greene tweet. She's apologizing for comparing safety masks to the Holocaust.
Wait, is that breaking news?
Yes, please. Thank you, Dennis. It's good to know that as batshit crazy as Mayor Lori Lightfoot may be, there are those out there in America who are worse. We've got a great show today, everybody. Maya Dukmasova is here. I'm looking at her right now. She's going to give us all the great news about First Tuesday returning to a stage, a live show in front of human beings, not just in front of a camera. We're going to talk about that. Maybe I'll ask Maya for her thoughts on the, Maya's been known to go on some great riffs about Lori Lightfoot from time to time, so maybe she has something interesting to say about that. And then, of course, Alderman Carlos Ramirez Rosa will be here, the 35th Ward, the guy who told me about this whole thing in the first place. We're going to be talking about probably elected school board, policing, DuSable Drive, all other municipal issues. And Carlos being a dedicated democratic socialist, we may do some national talk as well. But first, Maya Dukmasova with me. Maya, welcome back.
Hi.
All right, we have some very exciting news in the Maya and Ben world, and so I'm going to leave it to Maya to, I'd say break the news, except I already kind of broke it last week. But this is exciting. The pandemic has ended, and we're going out. We're going to bring First Tuesday back to a live show. Take it away, Maya. Give them the details.
Yeah, so on July 6th, First Tuesday of July at 6:30 p.m., we are having a triumphant return of in-person First Tuesdays on the patio at the Hideout. So this the attendance will be capped at around 70 people. The tickets are now on the Hideout website, so I strongly urge everyone to go ahead and get their tickets at hideoutchicago.com, all one word, hideoutchicago.com. So we are going to be together with three very interesting guests discussing the fight over the elected representative school board, which by the time the show rolls around, we'll have some more news about, basically. But it's the decision is being made, I believe, tomorrow about the bill, right? So yeah, we'll have a lot more to discuss come July 6th. And we're really excited to have this conversation. As most folks know, the Hideout and Tim and Kate Hutton are big supporters of the schools, of public schools, public education, and Chicago Teachers Union. They're big advocates for the elected school board. And so I know they're really psyched about the show. I'm really psyched about the show, frankly, because I am excited to give people an opportunity to understand what the different proposals are and what the big fight is about. I mean, the mayor just had this op-ed in the Sun-Times published yesterday talking about how horrible of an idea it will be to have a 21-person elected body in running the school and deciding who's managing the school district rather than her. So I think it'll be great to have this conversation, and especially for folks who don't have children in school, who aren't maybe very plugged into the nitty-gritty of school politics in Chicago. I think this will be a great way to kind of understand the situation and understand what's at stakes and what the debate is all about.
Yes. And so this is something that I have a particular obsession with. I've written about 3 columns on it in the last 3 or 4 months. And it's not so much the concept of an elected school board. I'm kind of a jaded on this subject. The inequities that plague our public school system, just not in Chicago, but throughout the country, are so enormous. I have a hard time believing that having an elected school board as opposed to an appointed school board would make a huge difference. But I just have this triggering, to use a millennial word, it really triggers me to see the arguments that the other side uses to justify having an appointed school board, which just all these arguments seem rooted in this notion that we as a citizenry in the city of Chicago are best served by having an all-powerful mayor who rules over us like a benevolent despot. And that's just the best way to go about things in the city of Chicago. And any attempt to deviate from that structure is going to result in disaster and chaos. And it's just the way they force feed that down our mouths, Maya, that just triggers me.
It's especially interesting to see these arguments being made by elected officials who we Chicagoans are putting in power in the first place. So I mean, the mayor saying, like, for example, this is one of the arguments in her op-ed. The current proposal that has been passed through the state Senate and soon faces the House would elect an unwieldy 21 board members. Those 21 new elected officials would be elected through a process without adequate controls on campaign cash. That will mean the most moneyed candidates will have an unfair advantage. So as in, like every other race in elected politics in America, this would also be, susceptible to the scales being tipped in favor of people who have more money, because we don't have a whole ton of limits about how money intersects with with elections and with politics in general. So okay, so basically you're just saying the way that I win, the way that I become your mayor, that's a big problem, and it's a bad idea to have the people who just make decisions about our school board, about our school district, be selected through the same process. And another amazing line in this was something about the last thing CPS needs is 21 more unchecked politicians. And I just read that line and I was like, unchecked politicians. I feel like that's literally the definition of Miguel del Valle. This is a man who spent his entire life in politics and now has been appointed by the mayor to run our school district with literally no direct accountability to the parents or children or citizenry of Chicago.
Yeah. No, the underlying assumption by people who are opposed to the elected school board, that the accountability, all the accountability we need for the schools is vested in that 4-year election of a mayor. So the mayor appoints the school, she appoints the park district board, she appoints every single overseeing body in the city of Chicago. And then every 4 years, we get to render a decision on whether she has done a good job on all these areas by voting in that one election. And so that's our accountability. And you're right, it is a stretch. By the way, I just want to point out our guests will be Rod Wilson, Deli Ramirez, and Rob Martwick. And Martwick is, of course, the state senator from the Northwest side. Deli Ramirez is a state representative from Humboldt Park area. They are the sponsors of the elected school board legislation. Deli Ramirez is the House sponsor. Rob Martwick is the Senate sponsor. Martwick has been fighting for an elected school board, Maya, for I want to say 7 or 8 years. He's been the chief sponsor for it, going back for a long time. And these two have so many inside stories to tell about the pressure that Lori Lightfoot has been putting on legislators, and the political games that are going behind the scene in an attempt to try to stifle this bill. And as Maya pointed out, tomorrow, Wednesday, the House will take up the bill. It was passed in the Senate, and it was kicked over to the House. If it passes the House, it goes to Governor Pritzker to be signed into law, and he has said he will sign it if it comes to his desk. So by the time we have our show on July 6th, it may, in fact, be the law, unless Lori Lightfoot's efforts to topple the bill are successful, and she can somehow or other get House supporters to pull back, which is something that has common in the city council, Maya, as you know, where an initiative that the mayor opposes is coming for a vote, looks like it's going to pass, and then all of a sudden aldermen flip or are not present.
Some knees are going to be shaking.
Exactly.
But I will say too that as with all pieces of legislation, what will happen if it does pass is there will be an extended and contentious and very detailed rulemaking process, as with every new law that passes, every new body that's established. So, a lot of the points that the mayor is bringing up in her arguments against it are the sort of things that people generally hammer out in the context of creating the specific rules about how the law should be implemented. So I feel like, first of all, I wouldn't be surprised if I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the worries that opponents have will be legislators will attempt to kind of address those in the rulemaking process. But also, there's still a lot that can change between now and when an eventual board would be implemented. So the thing that I find kind of incredible is just that when elected officials of any stripe, say to the public, we have too many, our system is too unwieldy, we've got too many elected officials already, and therefore we shouldn't have, this one more body of elected officials. And I also understand some people's concern that look, we've got mosquito abatement districts and water reclamation districts and hundreds of judges that are elected, and lots of people have no idea what any of those elected officials do, and what kind of there's not a lot of oversight. People with money just get in the race and win these seats. But if it's good enough for a mosquito abatement district to be run by democratically elected people, then how is it not something that we would want for our schools?
Yeah.
I feel like I understand where people are coming from in their apprehension that the people who will be on this board could be somehow lacking, but the people we have on the board now are somehow lacking. And the thing about those people is that there's no way for us to have a say in changing them other than by, getting rid of the mayor. But to win a mayoral race, you need a whole hell of a lot more money than you do to change up one of 21 board seats. I would
Absolutely.
say the most valid, the most kind of salient element of her critique, which I'm excited to have a conversation with our guests about on July 6th is this issue of basing the 21 districts off of population in the city and creating a situation in which the board may not be representative of the student body in schools. I mean, there are way more white kids in the city than there's a higher proportion of white people in the city than there are white students in CPS. So, I think that is a legitimate concern. And I think that especially as South Side and West Side Black neighborhood population continues to decline, it's a real, that's like a real issue. But in general, yeah, I don't, I just find it kind of rich for people, for elected officials to be saying, no, like the line stops here. We're not electing these other officials.
Yeah, and by the way, to that point, our third guest will be Rod Wilson, a community activist, and I reached out to Coco to select somebody, and I'll tell you why. Coco, the community organization from the near South Side of Chicago, they've been at the forefront of school political issues for many years. They've been strong advocates of an elected school board for many years, and they were part of a larger coalition of community groups that came together around this issue of elected school board, and we're sort of pushing Martwick and Delia Ramirez along to getting them not to buckle and to stand strong in the face of this mayoral opposition to an elected school board. And they themselves, Coco and Rod Wilson in particular, struggle with the bill that will probably pass tomorrow, because it allows for a period in which there's an appointed school board. So it's like a transition in the way this legislation works. There's a transition for at least, I think, 4 years. Martwick and Delia Ramirez will get into the specifics. And so Rod Wilson, to the point you were making, they were opposed to any appointed system at all. And so there was a little division within the elected school board community. So we're going to air that out, talk about those issues, and get into what you were getting at, which is if you have more districts in the city, does that mean that there's a greater likelihood that there's more representation for communities that are generally overlooked? So Rod Wilson will be addressing that as well. And I must confess, I was putting this panel together, and this is a confession about my position in the city of Chicago. I am really so alienated from the powers that be in corporate Chicago and even in the mayor's office that none of them will come on stage. So the people who speak the loudest against an elected school board are like corporate Chicago, civic Chicago, and editorial Chicago, mainstream editorial Chicago. Like the Sun-Times editorial board is outspoken in its opposition to it, and the Tribune is as well. So I'm going to play that role. I've read all their arguments. I'll play that role. I'll be Lori Lightfoot's supporter at this. I'll play that role. See how long that lasts, Maya. I don't know if I can go more than 5 minutes.
No, I think it's important to address those arguments and concerns. I think that it's, look, the people who write these editorials, most of them live in the suburbs and don't send their children to Chicago public schools. And the people who are like the business elite in the city of Chicago send their kids to private schools. They don't send them to CPS schools. I mean, I personally think that the voices of people who don't have their own children in CPS and have never sent their children to CPS schools should be, like the volume needs to be significantly lower than those from communities where the people, then basically the voices of the people who are arguing for this, who have kids in CPS or who have themselves gone to, are working in the system, or their kids graduated from CPS schools, like the people who actually need the service, who rely on it and who make it possible, like those voices are far more important than like the city elite that thinks that they're smarter than everybody else and, we'll figure it out for you. Like, you guys are too stupid to make these decisions. You guys aren't going to elect a qualified person. Like, we have a city council, and yes, some of the people on it are incompetent, but like, I get, isn't that the whole point of like living in some kind of democratic society? Like, yeah, some people are going to be incompetent, but at least theoretically, you can get rid of them every cycle.
Yeah. By the way, I toyed with the notion of reaching out to our good friend PC Pete Cunningham, who sort of
I
is.
just saw him a couple of days ago. He was saying
Yes.
elect the school board is a bad idea.
Yeah. Wait. He's the guy that I reach out to whenever I need a centrist who is not afraid to talk to lefties and will defend whatever point of view the centrists have. So he came to a First Tuesday and defended. What was that? A defense of this current system for selecting police superintendents. And he came on my show a couple of weeks ago, Maya, to defend the current system of appointed school boards. But I just said, you know what? I'm leaning too much on PC. I got to give him a break. He'll probably be there in the audience. Maybe we'll get him to play the guitar.
He's already got his ticket.
He already has. God bless him. Good friend of this show.
He'll ask the questions. If we miss anything, he'll ask the questions.
Yes, he'll
ask the questions that need to be asked.
He'll play that role. He's like the lefty whisperer for centrist Chicago. He's the one who's not afraid to go talk to a lefty every now and then. Maya, you know what it reminds me of so much, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this because this is an issue that you've spent a lot of time writing about the criminal justice system and policing, et cetera. The argument about a police oversight board. Very similar that there's been a movement by community activists to have an elected police oversight board. And Mayor Lori Lightfoot, when she was candidate Lori Lightfoot, was more or less supportive of that initiative, just like she was supportive of an elected school board as a candidate. And then, of course, when she took power, she became the mayor. She realized she was going to lose this authority. She flipped and is now against it. What's the parallels do you see between these two movements, the one for elected school board and the one for oversight authority over the police?
I mean, basically just the same. It's like a very similar story. I mean, people who are bearing the brunt of these institutions running in an inequitable and discriminatory and oppressive manner are demanding that they have some say in who gets to run them. Like it's completely unsurprising that these movements are both happening at the same time. And they're largely being led by a lot of the same organizations. I mean, there's not a whole ton of faith in the mayor's ability to select the kind of people who are actually going to be listening to Chicagoans who are negatively impacted by police, who aren't able to get the kind of education and services they need for their kids in Chicago public schools. So yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense that this is happening at the same time. But to be honest with you, I think that there is more of a chance that we have an elected representative school board than for the police department to be run by an elected body or by a majority elected body. Like, I feel that the city is more invested in keeping that control over the police department than they are. Like, they will fight harder to keep that control, I think, than they will over the schools.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right in that. I don't know if I will live to see an oversight board for the police department elected by the citizens of Chicago, unless I live to be like into my hundreds or something like that. Maya, one more time before we let you go and bring on Alderman Ramirez Rosa, who's standing by. Just give folks the information. We urge everybody to get a ticket. Come on out. I know there's a limit, so up to 70. The Hideout is coming back, and good people at the Hideout, Tim Tutton and Katie Tutton, the good progressive operators of the Hideouts, led the fight against Lincoln Yards. You got to give them I'm speaking for myself, not Maya. Give them a lot of love for that. So tell folks how they can get their tickets, Maya.
Yeah, so hideoutchicago.com, all one word. Go on there and you'll see the First Tuesday show coming up as the top event. We're the first show that's reopening the Hideout. This is it. We're pioneering the reopening of the Hideout. The show starts at 6:30. Tickets are $5. They're going to support the hideout, the staff that's going to be working there. So please come on out and grab your ticket fast, because they're going fast, and there's a cap on capacity. We all want to stay safe. And following our show, there's going to be a music show as well. Queso's band is playing at starting at 8:30. So, make a whole night out of it. Get a ticket to our show, get a ticket to see the band, and it's all going to be on the patio. Should be a nice. Hopefully, we have a nice day. Hopefully, it's not raining, and it'll be great to see everybody again in person.
It'll be great seeing you, Maya. I haven't seen you in person in a while, so we'll be doing these video things. So I'm looking forward to it. And Maya be proud of me. I'm getting out more. I went to a couple White Sox games, went to a couple restaurants, so I'm taking the plunge. And so July 6th it is. All right, Maya, thank you very much. Carlos Ramirez Rosa is on deck. We're going to bring him on after this brief break.
And before we talk with Carlos Ramirez Rosa, a song about Alderman from our good friend Michael Girardi. It's his latest, The Ballad of an Indicted Alderman. You can find this song, Michael Girardi Bandcamp, Gerardi. Maybe we'll see what Carlos thinks of this song. The Ballad of the Indicted Alderman. It's the Ben Joravsky Show.
Stepping down, I gave everything to this town. Why pick on me? I'm not the boss anyhow. The system works, I shouldn't have to answer to these jerks. I just wanted to help you so badly it hurts.
I want an answer.
I fell in love with the old way things were done, until the FBI took my love away. I fell in love with the old way things were done, until the FBI took my love away.
I want an answer.
I can't escape, but I don't even recognize this place. What's the point of steering contracts if they won't even let you get paid? I'll take a plea, I'll spend time with my family, work on my family tree, and get my boy his law degree. I fell in love with the old way things were done, until the FBI took my love away. I fell in love with the old way things were done, until the FBI took my love away. Until the FBI took my love away. I fell in love with the old way things were done, until the FBI took my love away.
You have to be a good neighbor. You have to be a good neighbor. Otherwise, I'm going to be up your butt every day.
Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show, live from his attic.
That was Alderman Tom Tunney. Dennis played that greatest hit from out of nowhere and caught me off guard. The song, Michael Girardi, I fell in love with the old ways things were done, the Ballad of an Indicted Alderman. With me is an alderman from the 35th Ward, Carlos Ramirez Rosa, who's definitely not indicted. All right, so that was just, that song is not about Carlos. but I guess it was inspired by Ed Burke. So Michael Girardi, I love that song. Carlos, before we take the deep dive, what'd you think of the song?
You know, it's definitely a ballad, very soulful, a lot of heart. You know, I wonder if it is about Ed Burke. Certainly, Ed Burke was in love with the way things used to be done. He was, you know, the old school Chicago boss alderman and had a lot of power. And it really, he had so much power, at least he thought he had, that he decided to shake down the richest Burger King franchisee in the world, a billionaire. And I guess he bit off more than he can chew.
Yes, indeed. He bit off more than he could chew. All right, Carlos, I already let the cat out of the bag and revealed that you were the millennial who was so kind to help an old baby boomer out by sending me a text, knowing that I would never see a tweet, but I would see a text. And Gregory Pratt, another millennial helping an old baby boomer out. Great reporting by Gregory Pratt. I want to give him another shout out. I've already given him a couple today. City Hall reporter for the Chicago Tribune, and through a FOIA request, unearthed an email that Lori Lightfoot wrote in what I jokingly call a moment of madness. And I immediately texted back to you when you sent it to me. It totally reminded me of The Shining, the Jack Nicholson's breakdown, the writer with writer's block who goes up to the hotel in the mountains of Colorado to write a great American novel and has writer's block and then just loses his mind and keeps writing the same sentence over and over again, because that's what Lori Lightfoot did. And then I worried, oh no, he's a millennial. He won't know the movie. He won't get the reference. And then Carlos, boom, texts me back telling me he were actually at that hotel where they shot the movie. So
that's right.
So let's talk about that a little bit. Mayor Lori Lightfoot's memo, your general thoughts when you saw it.
Well, you know, if she's Jack Nicholson, then we're all Shelley Duvall. And the city of Chicago is a Stanley Hotel. And we've got to change something about this situation, then. You know, I think all of us have come to expect that, you know, folks from big corporate law firms treat their underlings in a certain way. I think all of us have come to expect that the mayor of Chicago, you know, carries himself in a certain way, but that doesn't mean it's right. Particularly when people are in public service. And let me tell you something, study after study shows that people in public service make less than their counterparts with the same credentials in the private sector. So that means that these are people that are many times taking a pay cut, earning less than they would if they were in the private sector. And even if they were in the private sector, even if they were getting paid handsomely, no one should be treated with that type of disrespect. I think a measure of a person's character and their values is how they treat those that are quote unquote beneath them or those that are their underlings. And it really raised a question for myself. I said, oh my God, do I sound like this in email? So I actually went through and checked all my emails that I had sent to my staff. And I can say that no, I do not. I've never sent an email like that. You know, I think recently there was someone who reached out to me and said, Alderman, I emailed your generic ward office email. No one responded back to me. And so then I went through and found one email that no one had responded back to. And I sent it to my staff and said, hey, staff, let's just remember to respond to any emails that we get, even if it is just to acknowledge receipt, right? And I didn't repeat 10 times, you know, you will respond to the emails. So I think it really shows her character. And I think we've gotten smoke signals that this has been going on for quite some time with the issues that she's had retaining staff, hiring staff, with the stories that aldermen have gone public with. I think it's pretty clear that she does not play well with others, and that's not a good attribute to have for someone that's in public service and that leads such a diverse city like the city of Chicago. You really have to be able to bring people together to get things done for the good of our neighborhoods.
You know, many years ago, Carlos, when, well, I guess Mayor Daley had stepped down. So this is 10 years ago. Wow. And they cut the deal where Mayor Rahm was ushered in from the White House. And let's face it, folks, the deal was cut. Let's not kid ourselves. Miguel del Valle was running for mayor as the great independent. And the word on Miguel del Valle that was being whispered into my ear and other reporters' ears by supporters of Mayor Rahm is that he was too nice. He wasn't mean enough and nasty enough, which is so ironic. Now he's the head of the school board, appointed by Mayor Lori Lightfoot. We'll get into elected school board. Anyway, so I did a story about him for the Reader, and I went to him and I interviewed him, and I addressed this issue with him. I said, Miguel del Valle, are you too nice to be the mayor of the city of Chicago? Because there's this notion out there that you have to be a mean SOB to be the mayor of the city of Chicago. And his response to me was that just because he's polite to people and not abusive to people does not mean he's a walkover. Just because he wouldn't send out an email like this does not mean that, he's not going to stand up for what he believes in, or he doesn't have ideals. And then he went on to point out that he, Miguel del Valle, came from Thule High School in Humboldt Park, and that Rahm Emanuel came from New Trier High School. I'm just saying what he told me, Carlos. And he goes, so who do you think is tougher, the kid from Thule or the kid from New Trier? Which I thought was a good response. But what's your general thoughts?
Did you write about that at the time?
Yes, I did.
Remember that. Yeah. No, I definitely remember that.
Yeah, that was the article I wrote. It's, the last time Mayor Rahm ever talked to me. He wasn't Mayor Rahm. He hung up on me, got mad at me, didn't like my questions, and so ended my relationship with Mayor Rahm. Neither here nor there. And so what's just your general thoughts on whether somebody could be too nice to be the mayor of the city of Chicago, and that you have to be a mean SOB who's abusive to his or her workers to be the mayor? Go ahead.
No, I agree with Miguel del Valle on this. Just because you're nice to people doesn't mean that you're a pushover. I agree with that sentiment and that statement 100%. I think you can treat people with dignity and respect and still know your values and still hold firm to those values. And look, there's something to soft power. There's something to, knowing that you have the most power in the room and not acting like a petty tyrant and not yelling at people. I think that shows, in fact, that you are more in control of the situation and that you're more aware of the amount of power that you have than someone that constantly feels the need to yell or to belittle people. I think that yelling and that belittling of people speaks to a certain level of insecurity that actually is very detrimental to the type of gravitas and leadership that we need our elected officials, particularly our elected executives, to embody in their work.
By the way, have you ever had any moment like that with Mayor Lori Lightfoot, where she was abusive to you?
You know what? She has not, yelled at me in the way that I know she's yelled at some of my other colleagues. I will say that when we first met, which took us quite some time to get that meeting, but when we first met, it was very clear that she was not happy. She was very stern. I made it very clear that I wanted to work with her towards the progressive legislation that she had laid out and supported towards the end of her, run for mayor. I said, look, those are all great things that I support. And I had even praised her publicly in the press leading up to this meeting to say all of the great progressive things that she said during her inaugural speech. I'm for those things. I'll be her first vote to pass those things. And it was just very clear that she was not going to forgive me for not having supported her. And then at one point we start talking about the Welcoming City Ordinance amendments, making Chicago a true sanctuary city for undocumented immigrants. And I'm very glad that she ended up working with me and immigrant advocates to pass that. But I start talking to her about certain aspects of it, and she just says, I'm going to stop you right there. Don't play lawyer, which I just thought was very offensive because, I've worked on immigration issues as a congressional aide, as a deportation defense worker. I have worked alongside some of the nation's greatest policy experts on immigration matters. And, I'm taking my cues from them, right? I'm doing my research. And for her to simply say that me as a legislator who's coming here to talk about a piece of legislation of which I'm the co-sponsor, that me speaking on that piece of legislation and advocating for a certain approach is playing lawyer, I thought it was very belittling and showed that she just doesn't have much respect for those that make up the city council and who she has to work with in order to get things done.
Yeah, and I do believe this is something that comes with the turf of mayor over the last 40 years. And I remember something that Alderwoman Sue Sedlowski Garza told me about the first time she was ushered in to meet Mayor Rahm. She just won a very tough election. and I think it was like it went into a recount, and she was eked out a win over Mayor Rahm's ally, John Pope. And so Mayor Rahm ushers her into the office and sternly tells her, I don't want a circus here in the city. I don't want you bringing a circus here to the city council. And Sue Sadlowski Garza, man, you know, she's old school. She looked at him like, do I look like a clown? You know what I mean? Like, how disrespectful can you, like, it just, what's in the mindset is that somehow he's responsible and the man in charge and has, you know, leadership, and she's going to be a buffoon or something because she may disagree with him from time to time. But I think, Carlos, that's embedded in minds.
That? Do you think he really believed that, or do you think it's just a way to manipulate people? Is this just a talking point? Because similarly, you know, when I met with him the first time, he's like, you know, you can't just be a bomb thrower. You know, you can't just throw bombs from the sidelines. And I'm like, okay, so because I've criticized your policies and because, you know, I've put forward an alternative vision and alternative ordinances and amendments, I'm a bomb thrower. It's really offensive. And so for me, it's difficult to, is that really their worldview? In which case they are really limiting, and when I say they, I mean folks like him, corporate Democrats, neoliberals, they're really limiting their ability to actually navigate the world as it is because they have a flawed analysis. Right? Or is this just a talking point to malign and sideline their opposition, right? To say, if you are against me, you are a clown. You're not serious, right? I'm serious, right? If you are criticizing me, you're doing it simply because you're a bomb thrower. That's what you want to do. You want to throw bombs. So I don't know. What do you think, Ben? Is this...
I got to tell you, it's always a frightening exercise for me to try to go into the mind of Mayor Rahm Emanuel. I am called upon to do that from time to time. And you raise a very good point. Does he actually believe the things he says, not just this, but anything? Or is it all just some kind of great mind manipulation game in his attempt at gaslighting? I have no idea. I just have to take, I mean, I'll enjoy the parlor game of trying to figure out what's going on in his head, whether he believes anything. I used to have this argument all the time, Carlos. Like I would have argument with Christine over at the, I'll let the cat out of the bag, at the Chicago Teachers Union, back when she was an activist. We would argue all the time about Mayor Rahm. And I was like, Mayor Rahm doesn't believe anything except promoting himself. And she would say, no, he really does believe this neoliberal stuff that he espouses. I go, no, he'll say anything. He'll become a socialist if he thinks he can get elected. If that's what's going to help him. So I've come to believe, actually, that she may be more right than I was on this, that he actually has kind of convinced himself that the positions that he espouses over the last 30 years are actually the way of the world should go. I'm drifting in that territory, but I think it's a combination of both things. I think if he's like, I see some similarities with Mayor Lori Lightfoot. You punch somebody in the face when you first meet them, and then you think that's your way of owning them. And I'm looking at the city council right now, Carlos, I don't see it working. And I'm looking at people like who are ideological opposites. You, JT are on the same page. Raylo on the 15th Ward is totally ideological opposite of you, but none of you work well with someone punching you in the face. So if you want to win over Raymond Lopez, cussing him out, I do not believe is the way to go. I'm just saying that. That's how I view it. And if you want to win over JT, Jeanette Taylor, one of my favorite aldermen of the city council, love you, JT, punching her in the face is not the way to go. Your thoughts on this?
Well, one, it's such a crazy city, right? We're all quote unquote Democrats, you know, and then you have democratic socialists, right? Social Democrats who are of the left and really embody the progressive values of the base of the party. And then you have folks like Raymond Lopez, who is really the right wing of the city council alongside Nicholas Masato. And they're both here saying, we're Democrats. So it really is such a bizarre political reality that we live in, our two-party system and the way that our election laws have led to a system where we have people who are at complete opposites of the ideological spectrum, who have totally different values. I think there's no question that Raymond Lopez is one of the leaders of the right wing in the city council. But, you know, in terms of, you know, the mayor, I think the mayor, her own ideology and the own policies that she's espoused are very wishy-washy. And I think that there is a lot of things that she could have made common cause with Raymond Lopez on, like civilian oversight, like opposing police reform. And she's really shot herself in the foot by, unnecessarily fighting with him. And I think similar to the extent that she's adopted some progressive positions, I'm still willing to work with her on enacting that progressive legislation like I have now on multiple housing matters and how I've done on immigration. But still, she does make it very difficult when there is that unnecessary antagonism. And what I would say is also it's just an insecurity that really drives her to lash out at people and say everything has got to be my way or the highway. And shut up, don't play lawyer, know your place. You're nothing but a lowly alderman, and I'm, the genius that runs the city of Chicago that got, over 70% of the vote or something like that.
By the way, someday I would love to have a debate between you and Rayla. When I just listen to you riff, I always say this when he comes on the show. Carlos was a great debater at Whitney Young. And I've had him on the stage at the Hideout with Brandon Johnson, David Moore. I'm trying to think, would you ever with Joe Moore? Maybe not. Boy, that would have been a fun debate.
I think I was up there one time. Yeah.
I think with Joe Moore. Three.
Yeah.
Think about that, Carlos. Three of them.
Yeah.
So you and Raylo would pack the house and be a lot of fun.
And I'm the heavyweight champion, knock them all out.
He knocked them all out. Oh, no, I love David Moore. Speaking of David Moore, let's go to, I have elected school board in DuSable Drive, and let's deal with DuSable Drive. It is not so much a progressive issue, and I have progressive in quotes. I don't even like that word anymore, or a lefty issue. It's a symbolic issue. It's also gets into the symbolism of the way the mayor controls the city council. And Dennis is going to play an excerpt, Carlos. I told you he'd be playing this from the last city council meeting that Dave Galatz was so nice to deliver to us. And then I'd love to get your play-by-play on the games that mayors play with parliamentary procedure. Take it away, Dr. D.
Lastly, we have on page 21 transportation ordinance for the street renaming of Lakeshore Drive as Jean Baptiste Point DuSable Drive. Your Honor,
President, I call for a roll call on this ordinance.
Your Honor, there are members who wanted to speak on this matter.
I saw the hand of Alderman Hopkins raised.
I had my hand up before. I called for a roll call first.
Alderman Hopkins has had his hand up.
Oh, come on, President.
Thank you, Madam President.
Don't be so transparent.
Recognized.
Alderman King, you are out of order, please.
I'm not out of order. I had my hand up before. I see the play here. I called for a roll call just like we did before. This is just inequity playing out right here in front of us. We honored
Alderman Hopkins, please proceed.
Madam President, if I am so recognized, I would join my colleague from Ward 30.
It gets cut off.
Boo, Brian Hopkins.
Yeah,
Boo.
Brian Hopkins, alderman of the 2nd Ward, lover of the Lincoln Yards TIF. And that was Sophia King, alderwoman of the 4th Ward. So, Carlos, why don't you break down to folks what happened
What just happened? What just happened? So, under Robert's Rules of Order, which in addition to our Rules of Order and Procedure, anything that's not covered by our Rules of Order and Procedure in the Chicago City Council, we defer to Robert's Rules. And under Robert's Rules of Order, the chair is supposed to be impartial. The role of the chair of the meeting is to ensure that we have majoritarian rule while respecting the rights of the minority within the body. And Robert's Rules is set up in such a way to ensure that you're having a democratic debate where everyone has an opportunity to be heard. And at the end of the day, the majority decision rules. And so the chair is supposed to do everything that they possibly can to ensure that they are facilitating that democratic dialogue. But what we have consistently seen in the Chicago City Council, which it's very strange to have a city council in a city of our size where the mayors are presiding officer. In New York, they have their own speaker of the council that's a city council member that's elected by their peers. It's very, basically that's what you see in other major American cities and other cities across the globe. But our mayor as our presiding officer, not just Mayor Daley, but Rahm and Daley before him, really abuse of the chair position consistently. I mean, anyone that's an expert in Robert's Rules of Order would just tell you this is totally inappropriate. And so in this case, you're supposed to call on people in the order that they raise their hands, right? Sophia King, Alderwoman of the 4th Ward, Progressive Caucus Chair, had raised her hand, and Mayor Lightfoot refused to recognize her and suppress Sophia King's motion for a roll call in order to give privilege to the motion from Brian Hopkins, which was to defer and publish. So under our rules of order procedure, any 2 aldermen can defer an item that's set to be voted on before the full city council, normally for a month to the next city council meeting. So any 2 aldermen can do that. And so my assumption here is that the fix was in. Mayor Lori Lightfoot knew that Brian Hopkins was going to do that. Their plan was that as soon as this item came up for a vote, that she was going to call on Brian Hopkins. Doesn't matter if someone else had raised their hand first. In this case, she, as the chair of the meeting, really abused and made a mockery of our democratic process that's enshrined through Robert rules. Because again, you're supposed to allow majority rule. And in this case, it was pretty clear that the city council had a majority vote. And so she didn't want it to pass. And actually, when this was transpiring, you can't see it on the tape, obviously. But as someone who was sitting in the gallery, I can tell you the mayor had a smirk on her face. Like, we did it, mission accomplished. Her and Brian were smizing. They were smiling at each other, like they had just, pulled something off. And it was pretty gross. I think it was pretty gross because, in my opinion, the way that I view this is I do think it's a lefty issue because as someone who is committed to equity, as someone who's committed to righting historical wrongs, look, is representation the end all and be all? Absolutely not. We have to do so much more. The Black community needs reparations. The descendants of slaves need to be made whole. But by elevating Black heroes, there is a documented, well-researched proof consistently that if we elevate Black heroes, if we elevate American Indian heroes, if we elevate Latino heroes, that has a positive impact on the learning outcomes of children from those communities. And so you can't tell me that you're serious about seeing Black children succeed if you then do not want to mark our public spaces with Black heroes and honor them and make people not only feel a part of our society, but feel as if they are celebrated in our society. So I think that there's no question that DuSable is someone that should be celebrated. And the fact that Mayor Lightfoot here is siding with Brian Hopkins and Brendan Riley, who do not have the best track record on racial equity issues, to side with them. I think she's essentially saying, I'm siding with white supremacy and with this conservative right-wing sentiment that we should not rename Lakeshore Drive for one of our city's founding fathers. And I think that's rooted in anti-Blackness. It is anti-Black to say that we should not rename Lakeshore Drive for our city's first Black resident.
By the way, just going back to the previous discussion we had, Carlos, when we were talking about mayoral manipulation, gaslighting, messing with your mind. Whenever I hear that, Dennis has played it. We've gone over it a few times. So she clearly is instigated the showdown by not selecting the person whose hand was up first. When Sophia King protests the obvious breaking of the rules as part of this game, Lori Lightfoot flips the switch and starts chastising her for being out of order and sternly rebuking Sophia King. You're out of order. And I ask you to, and I'm like, what a mayoral mind fuck. You know what I'm saying? It's sort of like, no, she's not out of order. You're out of order.
Right,
And that's the part that, that's why I cannot do what you do, Carlos. Because once I start messing with my mind, I have a meltdown. I'm like, I get like Jack Nicholson from a different movie, like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. You're messing with me, man. And but you get what I'm saying? She flipped the switch
absolutely.
To be a king.
Absolutely. Yeah. To malign you, to silence you, to make you feel as if you're doing something wrong by speaking up and using your voice and the parliamentary procedure that is there to protect your ability to be heard in a democratic debate.
Yeah, by the way, and the same thing happened to David Moore. Alderman David Moore was on the show a couple of weeks ago. We played the clip there. They did the same thing to David Moore the first time around by substituting language in an ordinance. They're just messing with people because they don't want to change the name of Lakeshore Drive. I'm not quite sure why they don't want to change it. It's kind of hard to understand. It's not going to affect addresses or anything. So what do they care?
Well, Ben, I didn't know this, but apparently there's a song about Lakeshore Drive. See, I didn't know this, right?
He's a millennial, folks. His parents would know the song, but not him. Okay.
I don't even think my parents would know it. You know, we're not white people, right? We didn't grow up listening to that music, and so apparently there's a song and people feel very sentimental about it. But again, it's just like, you know, privileging those feelings about a song over honoring the city's first Black leader. All right, I have to weigh those two things. And if I privilege your feelings about this song over honoring the city's first Black leader, I think that's falling into white supremacy, and I think it's perpetuating anti-Blackness. DuSable is deserving of this honor. And as a matter of fact, it was first proposed in the 1990s by then Alderwoman Toni Kreckwinkle. This has been a long time coming, and there's a lot of community support in the Black community. I mean, every single transportation committee meeting that we have, every city council meeting that we have, you have folks from the Black Heroes Matter movement testifying and saying it's time to get this done. And I agree with them. And I think a majority of the city council agrees over the objections of Mayor Lightfoot, who has allied herself with Brian Hopkins and Alderman Riley on this issue.
All right. I will, before we move on, I will bet you lunch at your favorite restaurant that your parents know that song. All right, now.
Okay, I'll ask my mom. All right, I'm looking forward to that lunch.
I know. And you know what? Your mom can come too. I'll take the whole family, and your sister can come too, because I believe your mom knows that song. All right. By the way, do you think so? I think this matter comes up Wednesday at the city council meeting, because isn't Wednesday when? Am I wrong in the calendar, Carlos? At the next city, is Wednesday the next?
So
city
it's not tomorrow. It's a week from now.
Okay. Thank you.
A week.
So do you think
tomorrow, Wednesday?
So obviously, Mayor Lori Lightfoot needed that 1 month to reverse votes, get aldermen to back off from supporting it. Because David Moore told me, Ben, I got the votes. This is going to pass. And so Lori Lightfoot thinks that she can pull back the vote she needs. She has to get it down to 25, in which case she would be the deciding vote, the way that works in the Chicago City Council. So do you think Lori Lightfoot can get these aldermen to pull back from it, and so it is defeated? Or do you think that David Moore, Sophia King will prevail?
You know, we'll see. The mayor has a lot of sticks and carrots. You know, as the executive that oversees departments that deliver services in our ward, you know, she can threaten us. As she did the Black Caucus during the last budget vote, and she said, "Don't come ask me for shit," you know. Can I swear? I don't know. It's YouTube. I can say what I want. It's a free country.
Yes.
You know, I think that definitely we have to be vigilant that perhaps, you know, she's used some of those carrots or those sticks. She has the American Rescue Plan money, right, that she's going to try and budget her way. She can say, hey, you know, maybe you have a pet project in your ward or something you'd like to see happen, you know, come with me and vote no on this. So we'll see. You know, the mayor consistently claims that she doesn't engage in those games. That's a bunch of BS. We know for a fact that she does in fact engage in that vote trading, perhaps not as efficiently as some of her predecessors, but she does it. So we'll see. I spoke with Alderwoman King, you know, one of the main sponsors alongside David Moore of this measure. She seems confident that they still have the votes. I think between the Black Caucus, the socialists and the progressives, the leftists, the votes are there to make this happen. And quite frankly, if you're a white alderman in a liberal area, I don't see why you would oppose this. You know, the number of Republicans downtown and in the Gold Coast and in, you know, Hopkins Ward continues to grow every single day. But, you know, if you're on the northwest side or the north side and you're a white alderman that's going to vote against this, I would really rethink that, because I would hope that, you know, white liberals understand the importance of celebrating you know, Chicago's first Black resident, Black and immigrant resident.
Let's move on to the elected school board issue. Maya and I were talking about it earlier, and that vote will be coming up, I believe, this week on Wednesday. It will be in the House in Springfield, the House of Representatives. It's already passed the Senate. Governor Pritzker has said he will sign it to law if it passes the House. Mayor Lori Lightfoot wrote an editorial that ran in the Chicago Sun-Times today imploring House members not to vote for the bill, saying that she wants to continue with the appointed school board members situation that we have now. Your thoughts in general on an elected school board and what's going to go down with Wednesday's vote?
So I haven't read that op-ed yet that the mayor wrote. Did she explain her flip-flop on the elected school board?
No.
Oh my God. This is one of the things that for me has been the most frustrating about all this. In Mayor Lightfoot's first campaign ad, one of the first things she says is, I'm Lori Lightfoot, I support an elected school board, fully elected school board, right? The tweets that her campaign put out throughout the campaign, consistently saying, I support a fully elected school board. She's there talking about how her mom was on an elected school board and she knows that elected school boards are really important. She's here talking about, the mismanagement that has come out of City Hall for the elected school board. She made this a central plank of her campaign. And I suspect that there are a lot of voters that voted for her fully expecting that she would make good on this promise. We expect, and when I say we, I mean the public expects that, elected officials are going to get into office and they're going to have to change some of their positions because maybe they didn't necessarily know something that they know now, that they're, in power. Maybe some dynamic or some variable has changed. But one, I think that elected officials owe it to the public to explain why that is, that they've made this change. And two, I don't think that it should be on every single issue. And it seems like with this mayor, it's been almost every single issue that she's done a complete 180. So the mayor owes us a lot of answers. And I don't think she's answered it yet. I've done a few Google searches, read, many articles on what she said about the elected school board. I just don't think that she's explained yet why she's done this complete 180. And that for me is the most frustrating thing about this whole fight. Look, I think the votes, based upon the conversations I've had with folks in Springfield, both in the House and in the Senate, if you think that she's mean to aldermen, you better believe that she's mean to these, state lawmakers. She's not made any friends down in Springfield. Folks increasingly are vocalizing their unhappiness with the mayor. And she doesn't have the same carrots and the sticks that she has with the city council, right? So with, the city council, she can threaten us about, your city services and, your ability to get your pet projects in the budget are going to be hindered. But she can't do the same thing to state electeds. She's tried to do the same thing. And like you said, Ben, you don't punch somebody in the face and then say, okay, now let's be friends and, figure out how to work together. So, if I were the mayor and you ran on supporting an elected school board, and now you have this major compromise, because let me tell you, people have been fighting for an elected school board for a very long time. They want this elected school board to go into effect now. The compromise that is being considered right now in Springfield, which in all likelihood would pass, I would bet serious money, if that's the thing that I did, I would bet serious money that it's going to pass. It creates a process to get to an elected school board where for the next 5 years, the mayor is going to play a major role in setting the direction of the Chicago public schools. If I were her, I would take this win. They have watered down that bill because of what the mayor has been asking for, and she should do a victory lap and say, look, I completed this promise. I said I would support an elected school board. Now, for the first time ever, we have a path to an elected school board. I don't understand why she is taking this position of not wanting any real elected school board at all. Again, the only way that I can explain it or think of it, because she's doing the same exact thing on civilian oversight. She in her campaign plan and in her public announcement, she said, I want a directly elected civilian oversight body that has powers over the superintendent, that has powers over CPD policy, and now she's done a complete 182. I think that it was her view of, well, Rahm is bad. And Rahm is unethical, and Rahm is incompetent, and therefore he should not have the power of, over the police department. He needs some checks and balances there, and he should not have control over the Chicago public schools. But now that the light has come into the 5th floor of City Hall, Ben, I don't know if you've heard the good word. The light is here. Now that the light is here, we should all just, sit there in awe at the benevolence of her good governance. And leadership.
By the way, That was a great riff, by the way, Carlos. I have to say that when you were talking about why she doesn't take the victory lap, it popped in my mind that if necessary, a year from now or whenever the mayoral election kicks in, we will see Lori Lightfoot commercials bragging about how she delivered an elected school board. I could see that.
Oh,
you know
totally.
what I'm saying? You know what
Totally.
I mean?
Yeah. Everything she's done thus far, that's a safe bet, I think.
Yeah, it's probably a safer bet than does your mom know the Lakeshore Drive song? In Carlos's mind, though, I don't think it's any safer. But
What's the budget for this restaurant, though? Because I think
it's a low. All of a sudden, I'm going taking him to some fancy steakhouse. The whole family. Oh, this is my cousin, by the way, from Peoria. Yeah, you happen to be.
That's right.
So the elected school board. Well, it's also the mayor realizes this is so perverse, Carlos. One of the arguments they use for justifying the current system is that they could just shift money from City Hall over to the school board and vice versa whenever they need to, and they won't be able to do that if there's an elected school board, which. It's so funny to see like the editorial boards of Chicago and the good government groups of Chicago advocating a measure that's so incredibly anti quote unquote transparent and anti-good government as having fungible budgets. They could just throw money here and throw money there and nobody's paying attention anyway. So just, take from Peter to pay Paul. That's their argument. And they schlep out these civic federation types to say, yes, we need less transparency and more just moving money around from this TIF district to that school. I'm like, good God. It's up is down. Go ahead.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. It's a bunch of nonsense. And look, when we have an elected school board, which it's eminent. Do you think that the elected school board would really say, no, City of Chicago, we're not going to take that TIF surplus that you're announcing? No, City of Chicago, we're not going to accept that support that you're willing to provide us. The schools need that support. And I think you're going to continue to have aldermen and perhaps maybe even a mayor that's going to advocate for TIF surplus to help our Chicago public schools. But what will become harder and what should become harder and what needs to stop is the City of Chicago stealing from our kids to balance our budget. And that's what mayors have consistently done. Our poor kids, majority brown and black and working poor and middle class, the majority of these kids need every single resource that they can get into their classroom, right? And yet we consistently as a city, under the direction of our all-powerful mayor, have robbed our schools year after year after year. And right now, one of the main ways that they're doing it is they're shifting police payroll onto the Chicago public schools. And that's why students and parents and teachers have started the Police Free Schools campaign, in part. Obviously there's a lot of other issues involved with having police officers in school. But I think that, it's good governance. It's just evident, I think obvious. Every single other school district in this state has an elected school board, right? Democracy is the benchmark of the freedoms in our society. And the mayor of the city of Chicago has a really big job. I want Mayor Lightfoot and City Hall to figure out what to do with the lead in our water. I want them to figure out what to do with our broken budget. And quite frankly, having a mayor that has to have their hands guiding every single little thing that happens in the city of Chicago has not worked. It has not worked. And so I think that the more competent people that we can put in elected positions over these various city agencies, the better off we'll all be. Because one mayor can't do it all. They cannot do it all. It has not worked for our city. Mayoral control has not worked for our Chicago public schools. And similarly, it has not worked for CPD. And we need to bring in democracy into this system to really get the outcomes that we want to see.
So, Carlos, I'm going to move away from Chicago with some closing questions here, but I'm going to throw a wild card at you, folks. Generally, I call my guests every day before the show to ask them what they want to talk about. But something you said triggered a topic in my mind. So I'm going to throw this at you without any preparation. You're a political junkie, so I'm confident that you will have some sort of response that'll be interesting to hear. And I'm doing this because this is on my mind right now. I'm watching from afar the mayoral election in New York City. And they have voter choice system in rank choicing in New York. So you get to rank. You don't just vote once and then the top two go in a runoff if no one gets more than 50. No, they have a whole convoluted way. You pick a first, second, third, fourth, and fifth choices, and then ultimately they decide there and then who has the most votes. So AOC has weighed in with an endorsement. I'm struggling with who I would vote for if I lived in New York City. Carlos, if you lived in New York City, who would you vote for mayor of New York City?
Maya Wiley, number one. Easy peasy. I think that progressives, leftists, folks who want social and economic justice, we've got to consolidate our support. And when I say we, it's not because I'm a New Yorker, it's because wherever we are, we've got to consolidate our support to have success. We can duke it out early on in the primary, but once things start shaking out and it's pretty clear who the right-wing candidates are, we've got to come together. Maya Wiley, I think right now, it has the best shot of coalescing progressive, leftist, liberal voters in New York City. Andrew Yang, I think, is extremely dangerous. The man is all over the place with his positions, totally untested. I don't think that he has a clue how to run a city, let alone a city the size of New York. I think that, who's the other guy, the cop?
Yeah, Eric Adams. I was going to ask
Eric
you about
Adams,
him.
yeah. Similar, very dangerous policies that he's putting forward. And I'm glad that AOC has endorsed Maya Wiley. I think that what she's trying to do is she's trying to consolidate, progressive forces around Maya Wiley. But what's really funny? I think it was Ed McClellan. Do you know Ted McClellan? He's a reporter in the Chicagoland area.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he pointed out that if we had ranked choice voting in the city of Chicago, that Harold Washington wouldn't have made it into the runoff. And that may very well be possible, because what could have happened is you would have had Black voters rank Harold first, right? And then you would have had white voters and maybe some, anti-Black Latino voters rank, Daley or Byrne first. And then, if Byrne doesn't make it, to the second round, then all the Byrne 1 voters, Daley 2 voters go to Daley, right? Mm-hmm. And Daley, wins the primary. So that may very well be possible. Look, there's pros and cons to all different types of voting systems. In the past, I've supported ranked choice voting, but I just thought that was interesting, right? This notion that, Harold Washington, if there had been ranked choice voting in the city of Chicago, wouldn't have made it into, the runoff.
Yeah.
I wonder what would have happened in the Chicago primary.
The last one we had?
The last one that we had, yeah.
Where, I don't know, I would, who would have won that? I do not know. That's intriguing. My guess is that if I had to put money in Vegas, I'd say Tony Preckwinkle would have won.
Because you think there were some Mendoza first choice voters that voted for her in the primary, but if she hadn't made it, then their votes would have gone to Daley or something, or maybe vice versa.
Okay, now we're really in the land of speculation here, which I'm happy to go. This is as a more fun excursion than going into Rahm's brain, which he asked me to do earlier in the show. My guess is that there was a limit to Daley's vote. Looking back on it, I remember writing a column thinking about when Bill Daley announced, I can't believe the city of Chicago is getting ready to elect another Daley. And Carlos, I just worked from the assumption that everybody disagreed with me because I'm always on the losing end of elections. And I think in this one instance, I was with the mainstream voter in the city of Chicago. I'm going to throw something at you in New York. But by the way, in terms of Harold Washington, please do not use Harold Washington as a reason to be against ranked choice voting. It was a fluke that he got elected in the first place. It was not a healthy sign of the system. It was the overwhelming majority of white people voted against Harold Washington, even though upon reflection, and if they could take away the racial bias, they would admit he was a better mayor to their communities than Daley or Byrne. All right. So, but I'm flirting. I can't vote in it with Eric Adams, the Black cop. And I'll tell you why. I've thrown this out to many lefties and they think I'm insane. Oh, well. But I believe it's like a Nixon goes to China moment. And that Eric Adams has been on both sides of conflict in the matter of policing and the black community. And he has a viewpoint as such, as a black man in New York who has been harassed by police, and as a cop who's heard how police speak and how police think. He's in a unique position to really change or bring about some sort of change in the way policing is done in big cities with large black communities. That's what I'm thinking at this moment. Do you think I'm insane? Carlos, go ahead.
Well, I think those are fair points. You know, in truth, I have not paid close enough attention to this race to be able to directly respond line by line to what you just said. But what I will say is that the progressives that I know in New York City think that they should not touch Eric Adams with a 10-foot pole. And they've made their choice, and they're coalescing behind Maya Wiley. And I have no reason not to trust their judgment, right? These are the Democratic Socialists in New York. This is AOC. You know, that is the heart of the leftist movement right now in New York City. And if I were a low information New York voter, which at this point, I'm not a New York voter, but I don't have much information about the race, I would just trust their judgment and the decision that they've collectively made. You know, sometimes you just got to trust the movement. But I will say this. I did see a Twitter video of Eric Adams talking about how there's technology now where you can have one teacher and hundreds of students. And for me, I'm just like, come on, man, really? Like that's not the type of judgment that New York students or students in any city need. And then I also saw this other really weird video. If your viewers want to find it, the listeners want to find it. It was Eric Adams walking around his house.
Yeah, nice.
and showing. Did you see? Not the one where he was proving that he lived there. It was a video from years ago of him showing how to find drugs in your kid's backpack, and he kept talking about Fourth Amendment rights, but he kept referring to it as the First Amendment. So I'm like, of course. Typical big city cop doesn't know what's left and what's right in the U.S. Constitution. And that's why we've had such horrible unconstitutional policing in so many of our major American cities. But he just kept saying there's no First Amendment in your home.
I didn't see that one, but I saw the first two, because every time I talk about this, about how I'm thinking about, I have no vote in this, folks, just so you know. It's sort of like me in the NBA. I pick teams that I have no impact whatsoever in the New York's mayor's race or the NBA, but you know, you got to pick a team. And so whenever I say that, I'm not flirting with supporting Eric Adams. I get all the negative Eric Adams. He, by the way, for what it's worth, claims that it was fabrication, the video that was put together, him saying, but by the way, when I saw that about having all the, like one good teacher can handle 400 kids, I was thinking about the insanity of the debate over the pandemic and how many children can be in a classroom safely. And all these neoliberals were coming in with their studies. Well, our studies show that you could actually put the kids within 1 foot of each other. And it wouldn't matter. So, yeah, I just had a flashback to that moment. All right, we're going to end it with this question that everybody's gotten over the last week. And I told you it was coming. So get your response. Vice President Harris went to Guatemala and said, don't come here. And I've been asking all my guests, centrists, lefties, etc. We run the gamut from Joe Biden to Bernie Sanders and beyond for their views, their thoughts on Kamala's comment, don't come here. Carlos, take it away.
It's a hypocrisy for me. You know, Kamala Harris, as a senator, as a candidate for president, called out Donald Trump on his anti-immigrant sentiment, consistently said, we immigrants are welcome here. We need to be embracing immigrants, and you know that is what our country is all about. And she was right then, she's wrong now. I think she needs to answer why the administration has taken a complete 180 flip-flop on this issue, needs to explain to the American public what changed from, Joe Biden's pronouncements and her pronouncements on the campaign trail to now that they're in office. And I also think that it is not rooted in a historical analysis that understands that consistently the United States federal government, acting on behalf of the interests of U.S. corporations, has destabilized governments and economies in Latin America. This is a historical fact, right? We saw it in Chile. We saw it in Guatemala in 1954 with the overthrow of a democratically elected president that was done by the United States federal government. We are now experiencing the result of those failed interventionist imperialist policies in Latin America. And to go to a country and say, don't come, without any real recognition of the harm that our policies have caused, without any commitment to make amends and to rectify the harm that the U.S. has sowed there, I think is dishonest, I think is hypocritical, and I think it's bad public policy. Because what alternative are you providing to the mother who's fleeing violence? What alternative are you providing to the LGBTQ individual who is fleeing for their lives? Are you providing them with an alternative? Or are you simply just saying you're not welcome in the United States of America? So I think it's hypocrisy. I think she needs to be held to account. I think Joe Biden and the White House have to be held to account, and they have to explain what's with this flip-flop, what's with this complete 180, and what needs to be done to actually get this policy right.
Yeah. All right, Carlos, thanks. I had a feeling you would be saying that. And clearly let's just leave it at this. There's a big difference between running for office and running the office. We see that from.
But there shouldn't be, Ben. There shouldn't be, because that is when people become jaded and begin to lose trust. You should be able to trust that the people that you elect will make good on the promises that they made. Right? I think our credit card companies hold the average American to a higher standard than some of us hold elected officials to, right? In politics, your word is your bond. And look, I understand things are going to change. I'm an elected official. There's been some things that I thought before I ran for office and now when I've taken office. But for the most part, your word should be your bond. And if your word isn't your bond, you've got to be able to explain what happened. And in this instance, I don't think the media has done a good enough job of asking the Biden administration what happened, why this complete change, and also just the hypocrisy. There's some people that did side-by-side comparisons. They looked at when Trump said something similar and the way that it was reported in the Washington Post and the New York Times, and then they looked at when Kamala said the same exact thing and how it was reported on. I think that level of hypocrisy upsets the American voter, regardless of where you land on the ideological spectrum. And I think it has no place in politics.
All right, fair enough. That's as good a spot as to leave it. Carlos, thanks so much for taking time to come on. It's always a blast talking to you. And maybe I can talk you and Raylo. I'm thinking about this more and more as I listen to you talk, to either sharing a stage at the Hideout or just coming on this show.
It'll be epic. I'm totally down.
It would be epic. Epic is, I think, the right word for it. All right. Carlos Ramirez Rosa, Alderman of the 35th Ward, thank you very much. Also want to thank Maya Dukmasova for showing up earlier in the show to promote our Hideout show, where you're turning to the Hideout on July 6th. And of course, I want to thank the man, the myth, the legend, the pride of joy, Alton, Illinois, without whom the show would be possible. And as Carlos and Maya will tell you, back home in Alton, they call him Dr. D. Give yourself a raise. Take it out of petty cash. See you tomorrow, everybody.
You have to be a good neighbor.
To write an email like that comes after a lot of conversation and born of frustration. We got beyond that and solved the challenges that were at the heart of that email, which was written 5+ months ago. So I think we're in a better place.
You have to be a good neighbor. You have to be a good neighbor. Otherwise, I'm going to be up your butt every day.